What if the feeling of separation you experience every day, the space between you and the screen you, re-watching between you and the people you love, between your thoughts and the world they seem to describe, is a profound illusion? This isn't the opening to a science fiction epic, but a question being forced upon us by the deepest, most rigorously tested science in human history. We are embarking on a journey to the absolute edge of understanding, where the line between mind and matter, self and other, begins to beautifully and terrifyingly dissolve. We'll explore how a spooky phenomenon ridiculed by Einstein is now at the heart of a technological revolution, how your own brain might be more connected to others than you could ever imagine, and how these discoveries invite us to live in a radically new way. This is a story about the hidden architecture of reality itself, and your fundamental place within it. Our story begins where all of modern physics began its strange turn, with a riddle so profound it shook the very foundations of reality. It's a phenomenon called quantum entanglement. Albert Einstein, a man whose intuition gave us relativity, was so disturbed by it he famously called it spooky action at a distance. Imagine you have two coins, linked by some invisible thread. You give one to a friend who travels to the other side of the galaxy. The moment you flip your coin and see that it's heads, you know instantly that your friend's coin has landed on tails. Not because a signal traveled faster than light, but because, in some way, we still struggle to comprehend they aren't two separate coins at all. They are two expressions of a single unified system. They share one existence. For decades, this idea remained a bizarre footnote in physics, a philosophical headache. But then, a series of brilliant experiments, culminating in the work of three physicists, Alan Aspect, John Clauser, and Anton Zeilinger, changed everything. Their work, which earned them the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics, slammed the door shut on any classical explanation. They proved, beyond any reasonable doubt, that this strange non-local connection is a fundamental feature of our universe. The implications are staggering. It forces us to confront a startling possibility. If two particles can be so intimately connected that distance becomes meaningless, what does this say about the nature of separation itself? If, at the most fundamental level of reality, things are not as separate as they appear, what does that imply about the interconnectedness of, well, everything? For a long time, scientists believed this quantum spookiness was a delicate, fragile thing, observable only in the pristine, controlled quiet of a laboratory. But the universe, it seems, is far stranger and more interconnected than we ever gave it credit for. Recently, the mystery of entanglement has burst out of the lab and into the most extreme environments imaginable. In 2023, researchers at CERN, using the immense power of the Large Hadron Collider, observed entanglement between top quarks. These aren't just any particles. Top quarks are the most massive elementary particles ever discovered, forged in collisions of unimaginable energy. Discovering entanglement here, in this chaotic soup of creation, shows that this quantum link isn't a fragile exception, but a robust and fundamental feature of matter itself. Think about that. The very building blocks of our world, from the lightest photons to the heaviest quarks, are bound by this invisible web of connection. It gets even deeper. Physicists are now realizing that the protons and neutrons that make up the nucleus of every atom in your body exist in a state of maximum entanglement. The stuff you are made of is a constant, roiling dance of interconnected quantum states. This isn't some far-off, exotic phenomenon. It is the very nature of the substance that makes you, you. And as if to underscore how deeply woven into nature this principle is, researchers are now using artificial intelligence to discover new, more efficient ways to create and manipulate entangled states in the lab, suggesting that this quantum connectivity is not a secret nature is hiding, but a language it is waiting for us to speak. This brings us to a frontier that was, until very recently, considered scientific heresy: the role of quantum mechanics in the warm, wet, chaotic world of biology. The long-held assumption was that living systems were simply too messy for the delicate rules of the quantum world to have any effect. Quantum effects, it was thought, would be washed out in the noise of life. But nature is endlessly inventive. Emerging and admittedly still debated, research is starting to paint a very different picture. Consider the incredible navigational abilities of migratory birds. How does a tiny robin find its way across continents with pinpoint accuracy? Scientists are now seriously investigating a mind-bending possibility that quantum entanglement may be at the heart of its biological compass. The theory suggests that when a photon of light strikes a specific molecule in the bird's eye, it creates a pair of entangled electrons. The Earth as magnetic field then influences the spin of these electrons in a way that is dependent on the bird's orientation. This subtle quantum information is somehow translated into a neural signal, creating a heads-up display of the planet's magnetic field visible to the bird. While this is still a developing field, it's not an isolated curiosity. Scientists have found evidence of quantum effects in other biological processes like the stunning efficiency of photosynthesis, where energy seems to travel through a plant cell in a quantum wave, exploring all possible paths simultaneously to find the most efficient one. Even our own sense of smell might rely on the quantum vibrations of molecules. This research opens an extraordinary door. It suggests that life, over billions of years of evolution, may not have ignored the quantum world, but instead evolved to harness its strange and powerful principles. It hints that the machinery of life itself might be a form of quantum technology. And if quantum mechanics is at work in biology, it is only a matter of time before we ask the most profound question of all: what about the brain? This leads us to one of the most speculative, controversial, and utterly captivating intersections of science and philosophy: the relationship between quantum mechanics and consciousness. How does the gray 3-pound lump of matter in your skull produce the vivid, subjective, technicolor reality of your inner world? This is what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. And despite all our advances in neuroscience, we are no closer to a complete answer. This explanatory gap leaves the door open for more radical ideas. One of the most famous is the theory proposed by Nobel laureate Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. Their theory, known as orchestrated objective reduction, OR, suggests that consciousness doesn't arise from the classical on-off signaling of neurons, but from quantum processes occurring within tiny structures inside our brain cells called microtubules. They propose that these microtubules can sustain quantum states, and that the moment of conscious awareness corresponds to the collapse of these quantum states, a process Penrose believes is linked to the fundamental geometry of the universe itself. Now, it is crucial to state that this idea is met with intense skepticism by the majority of neuroscientists and physicists. Many argue that the brain is too warm and wet to sustain the delicate quantum coherence required for such a process. Yet, the theory persists because it dares to address the profound mystery of our own awareness head-on. We still lack any scientific theory that can explain how the firing of neurons creates the feeling of redness, the experience of joy, or the sensation of being a self. The quantum consciousness hypothesis, however, speculative highlights this gap in our understanding and reminds us that the principles governing reality at its most fundamental level might play a role in our own minds that we are only just beginning to comprehend. At the very heart of quantum mechanics lies a concept that is both profoundly important and widely misunderstood: the observer effect. In the quantum world, the act of measuring a system is not a passive act. You cannot simply look at a particle to see what it's doing. The moment you measure it, by bouncing a photon off of it, for instance, you fundamentally change its state. An electron existing in a wave of many potential locations will, upon measurement, collapse into a single definite position. This principle has been a source of deep scientific inquiry, but it has also been co-opted and misinterpreted by many popular spiritual movements. teachings on manifestation, and the law of attraction often invoke the observer effect as scientific proof that our conscious intention can directly shape physical reality. The argument usually goes something like this. Quantum physics proves that the observer creates reality. Therefore, my thoughts can create the reality I desire. It is absolutely crucial here to draw a clear line between what science demonstrates and where speculation begins. The observer effect in quantum mechanics does not require a conscious human observer. A machine, a rock, or even a single particle of air can act as an observer by interacting with a quantum system and causing it to decohere. The effect operates at microscopic scales under very specific laboratory conditions. There is absolutely no scientific evidence to suggest that human thought, on its own, can influence quantum events, let alone manifest a new car or a winning lottery ticket. This distinction isn't about shutting down curiosity. It's about embracing intellectual honesty. Conflating the two does a disservice to both the rigors of science and the genuine psychological power of these practices, which we will explore later. The observer effect invites us to hold a profound question. What is the relationship between mind and matter? But it does not provide a simple answer. It asks us to approach the mystery with both the open-minded wonder of a mystic and the rigorous discipline of a scientist. The mystery of connection, however, is not confined to the bizarre world of physics. It extends right into the very organ that is contemplating it, our brain. For a long time, neuroscience studied the brain as an isolated object, a single computer locked away inside a single skull. But groundbreaking new research is revealing that our brains may be far more interconnected and resonant with each other than we ever assumed. Using a technique called hyperscanning, scientists can now simultaneously monitor the brain activity of two or more people as they interact. What they've found is astonishing. When two people are emotionally connected or engaged in a shared task, a mother and her infant gazing at each other, two people playing a cooperative game, or romantic partners simply holding hands, their brainwaves can begin to synchronize. This neural resonance happens even without direct verbal communication. It's as if their brains form a single, unified system, operating in harmony. You felt this. It's the palpable sense of being on the same wavelength with a close friend. It's the unspoken understanding that can flow between two musicians improvising together. It's the shared electric energy of a crowd at a concert. While more speculative theories, like biologist Rupert Sheldrake's concept of morphic fields, invisible fields of information that shape living organisms, exist well outside the scientific mainstream, established neuroscience confirms a profound truth. Our brains are fundamentally social organs. They are not isolated computers, but are constantly being shaped, tuned, and reshaped by our relationships and our environment. At a deep biological level, the boundary we draw between self and other is beautifully and undeniably blurred. So, with this new understanding of interconnection, let's revisit the global movement around manifestation and the law of attraction. As we've discussed, proponents often misuse the language of quantum physics to explain how focused intention can attract desired outcomes. We've established that the scientific basis for these claims is absent. But to simply dismiss the reported experiences of millions of people would be to ignore something meaningful about the human mind. The question isn't, does it work the way they say it works? But rather, what is actually happening here? From a psychological perspective, these practices are undeniably powerful. When you engage in the practice of focusing your intention, you are performing a potent act of cognitive reframing. Let's break it down. First, focused intention acts like a priming mechanism for your brain. It's similar to the well-known psychological principle of figure ground formation. When you decide you want to buy a specific model of car, you suddenly start seeing that car everywhere. The cars were always there, but your focused attention has brought them from the background of your perception into the figure. In the same way, when you clarify your goals and intentions, your brain's attentional filters are recalibrated. You begin to notice opportunities, conversations, and resources that were always present but previously invisible to you. Second, the emotional component of these practices is key. Cultivating feelings of gratitude, joy, and abundance doesn't send out a vibration to the universe. It changes your own neurochemistry. Positive emotional states have been shown to boost creativity, enhance problem-solving skills, and increase resilience in the face of setbacks. You literally become a more resourceful and effective version of yourself. Finally, having clear goals simply orients your behavior. It provides a destination which allows your subconscious mind to work in the background, aligning your small, daily choices with your larger objective. The transformative power of these practices, then, may not lie in manipulating an external quantum field, but in the profound and scientifically validated process of reshaping our internal reality, our perceptions, our emotions, and our behaviors. And when you change your internal reality, you inevitably change how you experience and interact with the world around you. When we step back and widen our lens, we begin to see that this principle of profound interconnection isn't just a quirk of the quantum realm or a feature of social neuroscience. It appears to be a recurring theme, a fundamental pattern woven into the fabric of reality at multiple scales. Take the science of ecology. It teaches us the fundamental truth that no organism exists in isolation. A single old-growth tree is not just a tree. It is the center of a bustling metropolis. It is connected to the vast underground fungal networks that allow trees to share nutrients and information. It provides a home for countless insects, birds, and mammals. Its health is tied to the quality of the soil, the air, and the water, and it in turn influences those very systems. Ecology reveals a world composed not of separate things, but of vast, intricate webs of relationship that sustain entire ecosystems. Or consider systems theory, which emerged in the mid-20th century. It illustrates how in any complex system, be it a weather pattern, a stock market, or a living cell, the whole is always more than the sum of its parts. Small, seemingly insignificant changes in one part of the system can cascade into large, unpredictable effects elsewhere. This is the famous butterfly effect, where the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil could theoretically set off a tornado in Texas. It's a mathematical demonstration that in a complex, interconnected world, everything is, in a sense, touching everything else. And finally, we can return to physics at its most fundamental level. Quantum field theory, our most successful physical theory, describes reality as being composed of a few interconnected fields that permeate all of space and time. In this view, particles like electrons and photons are not tiny solid balls. They are simply localized vibrations or excitations of these underlying fields. According to quantum field theory, you are not a collection of separate particles. You are a complex, coherent, walking, talking pattern of vibration in the universal quantum fields. In this view, the idea of separation is a practical illusion, a useful simplification for our everyday lives. The deeper truth, echoed from the quantum to the cosmic, is interconnection. If reality is fundamentally interconnected at the quantum, biological, and social levels, what might this imply about the nature of consciousness itself? This question launches us from the shores of established science into the deep, speculative waters of profound thought experiments. Could it be that our modern assumption that consciousness is something strictly produced by and confined within individual skulls is mistaken? Some researchers and many contemplative traditions have long proposed that consciousness might be a more distributed, field-like property of reality. One of the most intriguing modern scientific theories that points in this direction is integrated information theory, or IIT, developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi. IIT proposes that consciousness is not an all-or-nothing property, but that it corresponds to a system's capacity to integrate information. Any system that can take in information and weave it into a unified, irreducible whole, possesses some degree of consciousness. A system's phi, its measure of integrated information, is a measure of its consciousness. While the human brain has an incredibly high phi, the theory suggests that, in principle, many other complex, integrated systems could also be conscious to varying degrees. This idea of a field of consciousness reframes many experiences that are typically dismissed as paranormal or coincidental. Perhaps what we experience as intuition, psychic phenomena, or even the uncanny power of focused intention is not one mind mysteriously influencing a separate, distant reality. Perhaps, instead, it is consciousness recognizing its own inherent, non-local nature. It could be a momentary glimpse through the illusion of separation, a recognition that the boundaries we perceive between our individual awareness and a larger, more unified field of consciousness are not as solid as they appear. This is, of course, highly speculative, but it is a speculation born from the deep patterns of interconnection we see everywhere in the universe. This is where our exploration pivots from the theoretical to the practical. Because regardless of whether consciousness is a quantum field, a property of integrated information, or an emergent product of classical neurology, one thing is certain: we can actively and deliberately cultivate our felt sense of interconnection. We don't have to wait for a unified theory of physics and consciousness to experience this deeper reality. Contemplative traditions have been developing and refining the methods for doing so for millennia. These aren't mysterious rituals. They are practical, verifiable techniques for training the mind and shifting attention. Take, for instance, the practice of loving-kindness meditation. In this practice, you systematically expand your circle of care. You start by generating feelings of warmth and well-wishing for yourself. Then you extend it to a loved one, then to a neutral person, then to a difficult person, and finally to all beings everywhere without exception. This isn't just a pleasant thought exercise. Neuroimaging studies have shown that this practice strengthens the neural networks in our brain associated with empathy, compassion, and pro-social behavior. You are literally rewiring your brain for connection. Or consider the simple, profound act of mindful breathing. On the surface, it's just about paying attention to the air entering and leaving your nostrils. But as you stay with it, a deeper recognition can dawn. This in-breath, this air that is giving you life right now, was just recently the exhalation of the trees and plants around you. And your out-breath, in turn, is providing the carbon dioxide that sustains them. In this simple act, you can have a direct, non-conceptual experience of what the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh called interbeing. You realize you are not a separate self breathing, but a node in a vast planetary respiratory system. These practices do not require belief in speculative physics to be transformative. They work by systematically shifting our attention away from the narrow, constricted story of a separate self and toward a more expansive, direct awareness of the countless relationships that define, sustain, and constitute our very existence. Our exploration now takes us into a fascinating, and it must be said, highly controversial area of research: the study of the collective effects of meditation. Could the inner state of one person or a group of people have a measurable effect on the world around them? Some studies, as intriguing as they are contentious, have suggested that the answer might be yes. Over the past few decades, a number of studies have observed statistical correlations between large groups of people practicing meditation and measurable decreases in societal stress indicators like crime rates, hospital admissions, or traffic accidents in the surrounding communities. For example, one widely cited study conducted in Washington, D.C. in 1993 reported a significant drop in violent crime that correlated with the size of a large group meditating in the city. Now, it is absolutely crucial to approach these findings with a healthy dose of scientific skepticism. Correlation is not causation. There could be numerous other hidden variables at play, and these studies are notoriously difficult to control. The mechanisms for such an effect are entirely unknown and unexplained by our current scientific paradigm. We are certainly not suggesting that meditation creates some kind of peace field that magically alters social behavior. To make such a claim would be a leap far beyond the data. Rather, these observations, which echo the ancient wisdom of many traditions about the ripple effects of inner work, serve as an invitation to humility and wonder. They present us with an anomaly, a signal in the noise that we don't yet understand. They invite us to consider the profound mystery of how an individual's cultivation of inner peace and coherence might participate in larger, unseen patterns of social harmony that our current scientific models cannot yet account for. It is a frontier of inquiry that reminds us just how much we still have to learn about the subtle connections that bind us. In the strange world of quantum mechanics, a fascinating and revealing situation exists. There are multiple radically different interpretations of what the theory is actually telling us about reality. For instance, the Copenhagen interpretation, the most commonly taught version, suggests that a quantum system exists in a superposition of all possible states until it is measured, at which point its wave function collapses into one objective reality. In stark contrast, the many worlds interpretation suggests that there is no collapse. Instead, every time a quantum measurement is made, the universe splits into multiple parallel universes, one for each possible outcome. Here is the truly mind-bending part. There is no experiment we can currently perform to prove one interpretation right and the other wrong. They all produce the exact same experimental predictions. The mathematics works equally well whether you believe in a single reality that collapses upon measurement or an infinite number of parallel universes branching off at every moment. This reveals something incredibly profound about the relationship between science and meaning. It shows that the interpretations we choose, the stories we tell ourselves about what the data means, may say as much about our own intuitions, our philosophical biases, and our psychological inclinations as they do about the ultimate nature of reality itself. This offers a beautiful and liberating parallel for our own exploration here. It suggests that we can hold various perspectives on the relationship between science, consciousness, and meaning lightly. We can appreciate how different views, the rigorous materialism of a neuroscientist, the speculative metaphysics of a philosopher, the experiential wisdom of a meditator, can illuminate different facets of the same underlying mystery without needing to declare one as the final absolute truth. It allows us to be both a scientist and a mystic, a skeptic and a romantic, all at the same time. This entire journey, from the enigma of entanglement to the mysteries of consciousness, invites us to cultivate a particular state of mind, a way of engaging with the world that we might call quantum curiosity. This is not just ordinary curiosity. It is a state of active, open-minded inquiry that honors the multifaceted, paradoxical, and layered nature of reality. It's the recognition that reality can be described at multiple, equally valid levels simultaneously, and that these levels don't invalidate one another. At the quantum level, there is the non-local connection of entanglement. At the biological level, there is the metabolic interdependence of all life. At the social level, there are the interconnected networks of brains and relationships. And at the experiential level, there is the potential for a feeling of unified consciousness. The physicist's description of a sunset in terms of photon wavelengths and atmospheric scattering does not make the poet's description of its breathtaking beauty any less true. They are simply different languages describing different levels of the same event. Quantum curiosity allows us to appreciate the mathematical precision and technological power of physics, while also being moved by the poetry of connection it suggests. It allows us to engage with practices like manifestation as powerful tools for psychological transformation, while remaining intellectually honest about their lack of scientific validation in the way they are often presented. It means we can hold rigorous skepticism and open-hearted wonder as essential, complementary tools for inquiry. It's a way of being in the world that is less about finding final answers and more about falling in love with the richness of the questions. Perhaps the most wondrous and awe-inspiring outcome of our exploration is not a new theory or a final answer, but a profound shift in perspective. It's the recognition of the universe's own improbable self-awareness. Consider this: the very same fundamental laws, the same fields and the same particles that govern the spooky dance of quantum entanglement have, over 13.8 billion years, organized themselves into stars, planets, and eventually into conscious beings capable of discovering and marveling at those very principles. This creates a stunning, recursive loop. Reality is investigating itself through us. The universe is not just a collection of inert matter and empty space. It has produced a part of itself that can think, feel, question, and understand. From this perspective, the debate over whether our consciousness can influence quantum effects almost seems to miss the point. The more profound realization is that our consciousness is a quantum effect in the broadest sense. We are expressions of a universe that is capable of both entanglement and awareness, of physical law and subjective experience. The feeling of wonder that arises from contemplating this is not just a pleasant emotion. It is, in itself, a form of entanglement. It is a moment of profound connection between the mind that is asking the questions and the cosmos that contains the answers. It's a reminder that we are not merely observers of the universe. We are participants. We are not separate from the grand cosmic project of self-discovery. We are its leading edge. So where does this contemplative journey through science and consciousness leave us? It leads to an approach we might call the gentle science of being. This is a way of engaging with the great mysteries of existence that is both intellectually rigorous and emotionally open, scientifically grounded and spiritually nourishing. It's a science that doesn't seek to conquer mystery, but to deepen our relationship with it. This approach embraces uncertainty, not as a flaw in our knowledge, but as an essential and beautiful feature of authentic inquiry. It recognizes that any map of reality will always be incomplete, and that there will always be more to discover. This perspective allows us to appreciate quantum mechanics for both its incredible technological power and its profound philosophical depth, without needing to force it to be a theory of everything. It allows us to engage with manifestation practices for their transformative psychological potential, without making unsubstantiated claims about their physical mechanisms. And it allows us to value contemplative traditions for their ability to enhance our felt sense of connection, without needing to prove them with a particle accelerator. It's a way of being that doesn't need to force these different domains, science, psychology, and spirituality, into a single, unified, and often reductive theory. Instead, it allows them to exist in a creative and complementary dialogue. It is a deep and abiding recognition that the capacity to wonder, to ask, to not know, is one of our most extraordinary and precious gifts. To explore the nature of this connection a little more deeply, let's consider a powerful metaphor from the world of classical physics, the principle of acoustic resonance. If you have two tuning forks of the exact same frequency, and you strike one, the other, even across the room, will begin to vibrate in sympathy. No physical connection is needed. The vibrations travel through the medium of the air and excite the second fork because it is tuned to receive that specific frequency. While this is a well-understood physical phenomenon, it serves as a powerful metaphor for how consciousness might operate in an interconnected world. We've all experienced something like this. We call it emotional contagion. Think about how one person's genuine, infectious laughter can ripple through a group, or how a single person's palpable anxiety can create a sense of unease in an entire room, even before a word is spoken. While these effects are often explained by conventional neurological mechanisms like mirror neurons, neurons that fire both when we perform an action and when we see someone else perform it, they point to the profound permeability of our individual boundaries. The metaphor of resonance suggests that our mental and emotional states are not entirely private, internal events. They create patterns or vibrations that radiate outward, influencing and synchronizing with those around us in subtle yet significant ways. It suggests that becoming a more peaceful, compassionate, or coherent person is not just a personal project. It is an act that changes the resonant frequency of the spaces we inhabit, making it subtly easier for others to tune into those same states. Returning once more to the quantum realm, the measurement principle offers another potent metaphor, not for changing the external world, but for transforming our inner lives. As we've seen, the act of observation in quantum mechanics doesn't just passively reveal what's already there. It actively participates in creating the reality that is being measured. The unobserved electron is a wave of potential. The observed electron is a particle in a specific place. Again, it is crucial to state that this does not mean our everyday thoughts create the physical world. However, this principle beautifully parallels the transformative power of mindful awareness in our own psychology. When you turn your attention inward toward your direct experience, a difficult emotion like anger, a confusing pattern of thought, a physical sensation of pain, the quality of that attention fundamentally alters what is being observed. If you observe your anger with judgment and resistance, you pour fuel on the fire. The anger intensifies. But if you can turn toward that same anger with a gentle, curious, non-judgmental awareness, simply allowing it to be there without needing it to change, something remarkable happens. The energy of the emotion begins to soften, to untangle. Its story begins to lose its grip. The anger may not vanish instantly, but its quality changes. It becomes less of a solid, overwhelming entity and more of a transient flow of energy. This reveals a remarkable and practical truth. Conscious attention is not a passive spotlight, but an active, creative, and often healing force in the shaping of our own psychological reality. Another intriguing metaphor for understanding our interconnectedness comes not from physics directly, but from a technology inspired by it, the hologram. A hologram has a remarkable property. If you take a holographic plate containing the image of, say, an apple and you shatter it, each tiny fragment of that plate will still contain the entire image of the apple, just at a lower resolution. Some physicists and philosophers have speculated that consciousness itself might have a holographic quality. What we experience as our individual self is like a fragment of the hologram. It contains the information of the whole, but from a particular, limited perspective. This metaphorical lens can help to make sense of the persistent insight from countless contemplative traditions that the individual self is not fundamentally separate from the cosmos, but is a unique and precious expression of it. It suggests that when you look deeply into your own awareness, you are, in a sense, looking into the nature of awareness itself. Contemplating our fundamental interconnectedness, whether through the lens of quantum physics, ecological science, or neuroscience, isn't just an abstract philosophical exercise. It naturally and powerfully leads to profound ethical questions. If the boundaries between self and other, between my well-being and yours, are more porous and illusory than they appear, what does this mean for how we ought to live? What does this mean for how we act in the world? This isn't a speculative question. Social psychology provides concrete evidence for this ripple effect. Studies on what is called generalized reciprocity have shown that acts of kindness can cascade through social networks to influence people we have never met and will never meet. When you are kind to someone, they are statistically more likely to be kind to someone else, who is then more likely to be kind to a third person, and so on. Your single small action can initiate a wave of positive behavior that extends far beyond your immediate perception. This reveals that even without invoking any speculative physics, our choices are woven into a vast pattern of cause and effect. The coffee you buy, the words you choose, the way you treat a stranger, these actions are not isolated events that terminate with you. They are contributions to a collective field of human interaction. Recognizing this deep interdependence doesn't have to be a burden. It can be an inspiration. It inspires a more expansive and natural sense of compassion and responsibility. Caring for others, for our communities, and for the planet ceases to be a moral chore and becomes a natural, intelligent expression of caring for the larger whole of which we are an inseparable part. Our journey has taken us through two very different, yet surprisingly complementary, landscapes. The landscape of scientific inquiry and the landscape of contemplative experience. It's clear that these represent two distinct, but equally valuable ways of knowing. Science, on the one hand, excels at explaining how things work. It operates through objective measurement, repeatable experimentation, and the rigorous language of mathematics. It is a third-person perspective on reality. It has given us the power to split the atom, to map the genome, and to peer back to the dawn of time, revealing a universe far stranger and more magnificent than our ancestors ever could have imagined. Quantum entanglement is a precise physical phenomenon described by an elegant mathematical equation. Contemplative traditions, on the other hand, excel at exploring the subjective experience of being. They operate through introspection, mindfulness, and the cultivation of awareness. It is a first-person perspective on reality. These traditions offer deep, time-tested insights into the nature of the mind, the self, and consciousness itself. A felt sense of spiritual connection is a profound subjective experience. A common mistake is to try to reduce one of these ways of knowing to the other, to try and prove spiritual experiences with physics, or to dismiss scientific findings because they don't align with our inner feelings. A more honest and fruitful approach is to appreciate them both as valid, distinct modes of inquiry that can inform and enrich one another. Both are real. Both are meaningful. And both can deepen our understanding of what it means to be a conscious being in an interconnected universe. As we look toward the future, the one thing the history of science guarantees us is that our current understanding is merely a stepping stone. What seems like a complete picture today will be seen as a quaint and partial sketch by future generations. This is not a failure of science. It is its greatest strength. In the decades to come, advances in quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and experimental neuroscience will undoubtedly deepen and possibly revolutionize our understanding of consciousness and connection. We may one day discover definitive, undeniable links between the quantum processes in our brains and our subjective experience. Or we may confirm with even greater certainty that consciousness is a purely classical, emergent phenomenon that can be fully explained by the complex computation of our neural networks. Either outcome would be a monumental discovery, a triumph of human inquiry. This inherent uncertainty about the future is not a limitation. It is an invitation. It means the story is not over. It means that our own personal explorations, our moments of awe and wonder, our dedicated contemplative practices, our genuine and honest questions, are not just personal hobbies. They are meaningful contributions to humanity's ongoing, collective quest to understand the mystery of our own being. We are all researchers on this grand frontier of discovery. The wonderful truth is that you do not need access to a multi-billion-dollar particle accelerator or an advanced neuroscience lab to explore these profound questions. The most important laboratory for investigating the nature of consciousness and connection is your own daily life, and it is open 24/7. Every interaction you have with another person is an experiment in empathy and resonance. Can you listen deeply enough to feel what it's like to be them, just for a moment? Every moment of focused attention is an experiment in how observation shapes experience. Can you watch a difficult thought arise without identifying with it? Every feeling of wonder, awe, or profound connection is data. It is direct, first-person data about the capacities of consciousness. By bringing a gentle, curious, scientific spirit of inquiry to your everyday moments, you can engage directly with the very mysteries we've been discussing. Your life ceases to be a series of random events you just have to get through, and it transforms into a continuous unfolding process of discovery. The universe is not something out there to be studied from a distance. You are embedded in it, and your own life is the most intimate and revealing field of study you will ever have. Ultimately, this entire exploration invites us to cultivate a different relationship with one of life's most fundamental states: uncertainty. Our culture often treats uncertainty as a problem to be solved, a void to be filled with quick and easy answers. We crave certainty. But this journey suggests a different path, one rooted in what we might call sacred questioning. This is a form of inquiry that doesn't rush toward answers, but instead learns to dwell in the richness of the mystery itself. It is the ability that the poet John Keats famously called negative capability, the capacity to be in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. This is not a passive resignation. It is an active, spacious, and creative state of mind. It's what allows a great artist to create beauty out of chaos, and a great scientist to perceive a new pattern where others see only noise. This negative capability allows us to appreciate the precision of science and the poetry of spiritual insight without needing them to resolve into a single simple system. It allows us to hold the paradoxes of our existence, that we are both insignificant specks and the universe's way of knowing itself, without needing to choose one over the other. It is in this open, inquisitive, and undefended space of not knowing that our most profound discoveries, both personal and collective, are so often made. There is a profound and transformative meditation available to every one of us at any moment that requires no special technique or belief system. It is grounded in the simple, astonishing, scientific fact of our own cosmic origins. Take a moment and consider your own hand. Every single atom in that hand, the carbon, the oxygen, the nitrogen, every single one was forged in the nuclear furnace of a star that lived, died, and exploded billions of years ago. The iron in your blood, which carries the oxygen that allows you to think these thoughts right now, was created in a supernova, a star's final, cataclysmic act of creation. As the astronomer Carl Sagan famously said, "We are made of star stuff." You are not separate from the universe, looking out at it. You are the universe, organized into a temporary, magnificent pattern that is capable of walking, talking, loving, and reflecting upon itself. From this vantage point, the question is not whether your consciousness can somehow influence the distant cosmos. The deeper recognition is that your consciousness is the cosmos, finally becoming aware of itself. This understanding doesn't require complex physics. It is a simple, profound truth that can transform even the most ordinary moments into occasions for awe, revealing that the universal is not something to be sought out there. It is present in the very matter, in the very awareness that constitutes your being, right here, right now. And so, as our long journey through these interconnected landscapes concludes, we find ourselves returning to the simple sense of wonder that began it all. We have not arrived at a set of final answers, but hopefully at a deeper and more intimate appreciation for the magnificent puzzle of being conscious in an interconnected universe. Whether quantum physics directly explains the intricacies of human connection or simply serves as a powerful and resonant metaphor, the act of contemplating these ideas can't help but shift our relationship with existence. We are left with a reality that is far more mysterious, subtle, and unified than our everyday senses would have us believe. The ultimate insight, perhaps, is not found in any one theory, but in the simple recognition that the capacity to ask these questions, to feel this wonder, and to seek this connection is the most extraordinary phenomenon of all. We are invited to let go of the need for absolute certainty, and instead to rest in this beautiful dynamic and unresolved mystery, knowing that our own awareness is not a spectator to the unfolding of the cosmos, but a vital and inseparable part of it. This journey into mystery doesn't have to end here. In fact, it's just the beginning. The real exploration happens in your life, in your relationships, and in the quiet moments of your own contemplation. So, I leave you with a question to carry with you. In what small way, today, can you act from the recognition that the boundary between you and the world is more porous than you thought? How might that change the way you interact with the next person you meet, or how you perceive the natural world around you? Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the nature of reality. It has been a privilege to explore these ideas with you. I wish you not only good health, but a profound and ever-deepening sense of wonder. If this exploration resonated with you, if it sparked your curiosity and opened up new questions, please consider subscribing to the channel. We have many more journeys like this to take together into the biggest questions and the most profound mysteries of science and the human spirit. Click that subscribe button and let's continue the conversation.